Today is March the 11th of 2023. Today we're here with Kimberly Anderson, who's running for the AISD Board of Trustees. Kimberly, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's start off and tell the voters why you're running for re-election on the AISD.
Well, I've been serving on the AISD Board of Trustees since 2019, and I'm serving as president this year. And I feel like my work is not done. I ran in 2019 for a number of reasons. One of those being, I think, when decisions are being made about education, that an educator should be at the table. And I happen to be an educator, so I thought that that was important, and that was one of the reasons that I ran. But I also feel like it's important for every student in our district to have an advocate on the board looking out for them and thinking about how policy is going to affect their experience. So I feel like we've made a lot of progress, even amidst global pandemic and unprecedented times being used way too many times over the past 4 years. I feel like we've made progress. I've learned a lot. I've gained a lot of experience. And I want to continue doing that work, continue growing on the progress we've made, continue investing that experience and my expertise in our district, just to make sure that we're making decisions in the best interest of our kids and in the best interest of our community. What it really comes down to is that I love Amarillo. My roots are deep here. I was born and raised here. My parents are Panhandle. Born and raised, and my love for Amarillo is strong, and I want everyone in the city that I live in and that I love to thrive and to flourish. And I know that starts with a strong school system. And I think the best way to have a strong school system is to have decision makers who can look at problems from multiple perspectives. And I have the perspective of a graduate of AISD, of a parent in AISD, of a teacher in AISD, and now as an experienced board member. And I'd just be honored to be able to bring those things to the board again for another 4 years and see if we can't grow even more.
So what do you think are some of the biggest issues facing the board?
There are a number of issues. One of our main issues right now is enrollment decline, which affects budget. In the schools, we are funded on average daily attendance. And so it's not even enrollment. It's enrollment, but then how many of those kids actually show up every day. And we've had a huge decline in enrollment over the past several years that really aligns with, if you look at the census data, there's been a population drop in Potter County, and there's been a huge drop in the population of children in Potter County, and we're seeing really low birth rates in Potter County. So we're just not educating as many kids, which means we aren't getting as much money to do the job we need to do. And so one thing we're going to have to look at is figuring out how to use our money smarter, how to get the biggest bang for each buck without compromising the quality of education we're giving to our students. So that's probably our biggest logistical challenge right now, because everything takes money. Having the best teachers takes money. Having extracurricular activities and electives takes money. And currently there's no inflation factor in our funding formula. And so every year we're being asked to do the same job with less buying power per student because of the way we're funded. So that would be one of our main challenges right now. We have persistent achievement gaps between our population groups. And so we have to take a really deep look at what are the root causes of that, and how can we as a district make an impact there and close those achievement gaps. And it's important because this is the future of our city we're talking about. A city's as strong as its populace and as its workforce, and the best workforce is an educated workforce. And so making sure that every single one of our students, just the mission of AISD, graduating every student prepared for life and success after high school, we want to make sure that we're closing gaps and we're making sure that everyone's leaving our schools ready to go out into the world and make a difference and be a contributor. And those are probably the two main issues we're facing right now. There are always a number of issues. I could go on and on, but those are the two really large issues that I see for us right now.
So you say Potter County shrinking. What about Randall?
Randall County's, so if you look at the latest census data, in the top 26 counties, there were only 2 counties that actually gained population over the past 10 years, and that was Randall County and Dallam County. For Amarillo ISD, that we're in a tight spot because we're landlocked. And so most of the growth is happening outside of our boundaries. So there is a lot of growth going on in Randall, but most of those homes, most of that growth is happening in other school districts.
Yeah, Canyon ISD, Bushland.
Yes, sir.
So we need to look at the cause. Why is Potter County shrinking?
If I had that answer, I'd be a very wealthy person, I'm sure. I think it's a number of factors. A lot of the retail growth and growth like that is happening, like you said, in Randall County. It's not just people, it's the actual growth of things to do and jobs. We are getting a lot of industry in Potter County, but there's zoning. It's a number of issues. At some point, we as a city are going to have to look at Potter County and say, how do we revitalize Potter County? How do we reinvigorate Potter County if we want to grow? Because we're going to run out of room too. Amarillo's landlocked too. We've got Canyon on one side. We've got cities around us. If we as Amarillo want to grow, we're going to have to look back north, look to Potter County and see what are the options, what are the opportunities to grow and revitalize this area and make it an area that young families want to move into. There are health issues. There's a myriad of issues in Potter County that contribute to that. And I would be out of my lane to really try to pinpoint what the actual root cause is. But it is something that we need to look at as a city just for our sustainability going into the future.
Well, I think you have things such as crime, higher property taxes. There's simple things like that, and people are moving from Potter to Randall.
Mm-hmm.
And that's to me, that's the type of thing that needs to be addressed. Is figure out what's causing that problem. If we can reverse that, then everybody solves your problem.
Absolutely,
right? And a lot of other people's problem.
Absolutely, and
but we tend to always want to fix the problem instead of figure out what causes it.
Well, and you can't really fix it unless you do figure out what causes it. We
tend to mask over problems.
I would agree.
Just raise taxes. Well, then it's going to drive more people out of Potter County into different school districts close by.
But, I mean, I think you're right that we've got to get the best minds in our city and just from every government agency, from business together to say, okay, what is causing this and what can we do to reverse it and to make a difference and to revitalize that area so that we aren't we're not just migrating, that we're actually growing our city and sustaining our city. Because like I said, my roots are deep here, and I've lived here all of my life. I've lived in 2 houses my entire life, one in Potter County with my parents until I got married, and one in Randall County for the past almost 21 years with my husband. And this may sound morbid. I'd like to die here. I'd like my kids to want to come back here and live lives here and serve here and work here and grow old here and let me grow old here. And if we don't do something that future is getting a little shadier, a little less likely. And so I'd really love to see us come together as a city to see what we can do to make the Panhandle and Amarillo a place our kids want to come back to and stay and live their lives.
So what do you think's caused this problem? I mean, it's not something that's just happened overnight. This has been an ongoing, long-term lack of foresight, I think, on previous city leaders or the people that supported those leaders. They've tried to keep Amarillo from growing, and now we're paying the price. So how do we fix it?
Again, if I knew the answer to that.
Well, I think what happens, I saw this happen in Austin. It was the same situation. They didn't want it to grow. They didn't want to build any infrastructure. They didn't want any roads because they thought if they built roads, people would come and it would get crowded. But what happened was the people came, and then they couldn't, much more expensive and difficult to build out the infrastructure because the people came and they didn't prepare for it. I guess what I'm trying to say is, to me, you have to prepare for the future.
Mm-hmm.
And if they come, you're prepared, and if they don't, you wait until they do. So they will come, and it looks like I've had several people indicate that we're going to have several thousand new jobs headed this way. Mm-hmm. So, that could be a big deal for the school districts. It could be a boon to a lot of communities if our city leaders would plan for that and prepare for it.
Well, and I think to your point about jobs coming in, I think when we get down to the basics, it's a quality of life, and we have to make sure that the residents of Amarillo are able to earn a family-sustaining wage, not just enough to get by, but enough to have savings and to have some control over their time, to invest in service and invest in rest and spending time with their family. And the way you do that is education. You empower your residents with the education and the certification and the trainings they need to be able to hold those jobs that pay those wages. And that's at the school district. That's what we've really made a lot of steps towards doing. And we're constantly looking for ways to better prepare our students for, again, our mission, life and success after high school. And, making it clear that there's not just one path to success. It's not just through a university. Sometimes it is through a university. Sometimes it's through a 2-year institution. Sometimes it's an apprenticeship. Sometimes it's trade school. Sometimes it's on-the-job training. But showing our students all of the options available to them and helping them find the path that's going to give them a career that will fulfill them, that they want to be in, that they feel like they're making a contribution in, but also pays them well enough to have a good quality of life and want to stay.
Yeah, somebody has to do the work.
Yes.
Not everybody can pontificate for a living.
Yes. That's the truth.
A philosophy degree from Harvard is not going to produce power to turn your lights on.
I think that for me, all education is valuable because it makes you a fuller person and able to look at things. But I understand what you're saying. We have to have purpose.
Well, education
in our
in and of
education.
itself, you can have all the information in the world, but if you can't apply it or use it,
absolutely,
it's a waste.
It's absolutely. We have to be able to pair that.
Yeah, you have to have people that can take what they know and apply it.
And we've really tried to help our students plan that, okay, you're going, if you are going to college, you're going to get this degree. What are you going to do with it? Not just the next step's college and then they have this degree, but help them make that plan, that full plan that goes all the way through training into actually attaining that job. And we've tried to be really good about talking to our students about, if you want to be a marine biologist, but you want to live in the Panhandle, that may not be the best major for you. That talking about what's actually available in the place where you plan to settle, and how can you explore your interests with something that actually is going to be of use in the area you're wanting to live, which is hopefully staying here or coming back someday.
Yeah, I've never understood why there's so many people in the Panhandle join the Navy.
They want to see the world.
I guess it was something we didn't have around here was water, but just about everybody I know was in the Navy. Like, that's weird. I would think it'd be Air Force or something like that.
I know a lot of people that went into the Air Force, but I went to Paladura High School, and we had the Air Force JROTC that I was in for a couple of years, and so I think maybe that's why I knew a lot of people that went into the Air Force.
The Navy probably had a good recruiting program here.
Yes.
Yeah, that could be it. That's interesting. So you're the president of the school board. How do you become the president of the school board?
So that's something we as trustees vote on. It's not as glamorous as it may sound. It really is just working with the administration to plan the meetings and make sure that all trustees are heard. If they want an agenda item, be an advocate for making sure that that's there, making sure that the administration is prepared to give trustees all the information we're going to need to help to make the best decisions. That piece, and then presiding over the meetings, knowing a little bit of Robert's rules and doing that. It's an honor for that my colleagues had confidence in me to do that job, and that means a lot to me because I respect each and every one of them at the utmost, and have really enjoyed working with them. I think we have a really strong board that brings multiple perspectives. It's not one note with us. We all have different occupations, different lived experiences, and so we can look at a problem and come pretty close to full circle around it instead of all looking at it from the same angle, and that helps us build better solutions sometimes. And so really enjoyed that. But being president is an honor, but it's not really that glamorous of a job.
So let's explain to the voters what do you see what is the role of the school board?
The role of the school board is governance and oversight. So one really good analogy that I heard was it's like a taxi, and the school board gets in the taxi and says, we want to go here. We set goals, we set vision, and then the administration gets to tell us the route that we're going to take to get there. And we have some purview to say, we want to go here and maybe take a pit stop here. But really, we don't get involved in the day-to-day management of the district because I am, but for the most part, school boards aren't made of educators that have that expertise and knowledge to run schools. And so we delegate that. We delegate that to the superintendent. He's our only employee. He's the only person we give direction to, but we give him goals. We set policy, which sets the boundaries within which the district can work and puts in some protections and that kind of thing. And then we hold him accountable, and we get reports on progress, and we make sure that we're making progress or ask why we're not making progress towards these goals that we've set. And it's really important that we stay out of management for accountability purposes, because if we're telling him we want to achieve this and then we're telling him every step to take, can we really hold him accountable if it's a failure? No, because that's on us, and who's going to hold us accountable? So we really are that 20,000, 30,000 foot look at here's the district, here's where we want it to be, and then setting the policy and setting the goals. And then we act as ambassadors to the community and for the community. So part of our job is to go out there and tell the story of the great things happening in our district. But on the flip side, another part is to hear from our constituents, and if there's an issue, help them find the path to resolution, or run that flag up the flagpole to the administration and let them know that that's happening. And then we also have the role of advocacy to our legislators, because we know that so much of what happens in our schools is decided in Austin every 2 years. We know how it feels to be micromanaged. So we don't like to micromanage the administration if we can avoid it, because we know how that feels, because the legislature's constantly putting more rules in place, taking more power away from our local governments and putting it for education with the unelected commissioner. So it's our responsibility to make sure we're building relationships with our legislators and communicating to them policy that would empower us to do a better job and to make decisions that help us meet the needs of our community. Because Texas is a big state. We've got over 1,000 school districts. We have school districts that have over 100,000 students, and we have school districts that have less than 100. And one size fits all doesn't work in those cases. Just in the Panhandle area, we have Amarillo ISD is the largest, and we have some very, very small. And so you can't pass these blanket laws and expect it to be what's going to work best in every one of those districts when they're so different. The challenges are different, populations are different. And so that's another one of our roles, is making sure that we're advocating for good policy that's going to empower us to do the best job we can for our community.
Yeah. Well, that's why everybody believes in smaller, more local government.
Yes.
Because it's closest to the people.
Absolutely.
And one size doesn't fit all. Everybody's unique.
Yes.
And so they need to elect unique representatives that will represent their interest.
Absolutely.
So that's why we have a republic form of government, not a democracy.
Representative democracy.
That's right.
Is that right?
No, it's a representative republic.
Okay.
No such thing as a representative democracy.
Okay.
It's a contradiction. Democracy is mob rule. The rights of the minority are eliminated. It's totalitarianism. And whenever I see that, I'm suspect.
Mm-hmm.
Either the people are uneducated or they have an agenda. And I think they're trying to convince people that we live in a democracy. And whenever they use that term, they're just reinforcing what they're trying to get. Even on our voting machines, it says marching toward democracy.
I didn't notice that. I haven't noticed that. I'll have to look this time.
Nobody notices what they're doing.
I'll have to notice. I'll have to look at that this time.
That tells me almost everything I need to know.
I'll have to look at that when I go vote, because I didn't notice that.
Nobody notices, and they put it right in front of you.
Well, I'll have to look at that. I hadn't realized that it had that on there. You know what I see that really does concern me, kind of hurts my heart a little bit, is the low voter turnout in our area, especially in these May elections that are just city, usually, which actually impact people's lives more. Yep. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters. I'm an officer for the League of Women Voters, because I really believe in the power of the vote and empowering people with the knowledge to go make an educated vote, so that their voice can be heard. And I feel like that's part of the challenge right now, is that when you have, even in, historically big election, you have less than 75% of your registered voters casting their vote, there's a problem and there's a disconnect. And I'm not sure what we do to motivate people and to educate them, to help them feel confident in casting that vote.
Well, that's what we're trying to do. I'm trying to get people informed.
Yes.
And if we can include them, invite them, inform them, remind them.
Yes.
That's what I try to do, and then it's up to them. I can't force them.
Absolutely.
The best I can do is to let them know what's going on, and if they want to participate, they can. And the ones that don't want to, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Don't complain,
Mm.
and don't waste our time.
Mm. But I would love to see more people turn out in those city. Well, all of our elections.
I think you're going to see bigger turnout here this time.
I hope so.
Number one, I'm going to do everything I can to remind them and include them and inform them. And I think people are starting to realize that their local communities where it's at, and when they don't participate, bad things happen. When they become it's about responsibility. They have to take responsibility for their kids, and they have to take responsibility for their community. The least they can do is vote. And the ones that don't want to, that is a vote. You're voting for the status quo.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you don't vote. So you need to be informed.
Absolutely.
And make a wise choice. But I think a lot of it is the voting machines. A lot of people are not sure they know how to use them and don't want to look bad, so they don't go vote. And the countywide voting is reduced participation because they don't know where to vote, and they move them around, and they don't understand any of it anymore.
That would be an interesting study, is just to ask people.
I have. Nobody likes it except elected officials that are incumbents.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They love it because the lower the voter turnout, the better they do.
Well, I hope every registered voter turns out in this election.
That would be my preference.
It's we had a bond election last May, mm-hmm. and we lost, and that is what it is. But in this election, if I lose, it's going to be a lot easier to swallow if everybody got out and voted, because then I could feel like, and it would not allow excuses for, if everyone would get out and make their voice heard, we could really have a mandate for somebody or something. Whereas when it's just 10, 12% of the population, that's questionable of whether that's a mandate or not. And so I would really love to see every registered voter come out and have their say.
Well, apparently they were able to fix some of those problems very inexpensively that they said they had to have that money for. Would they fix Travis Middle School for $300,000, and they said it was going to cost.
Oh well, I don't know that there was anything on Travis on that bond. Austin Middle School. The Austin Middle School fix isn't a fix; it's temporary, and it was more than $300,000. It's still very temporary. It's buying us about 10 years to come up with a solid long-term plan. I really hope that as we move forward that we can go back to that facility study that we had done and really build a long-term strategic plan for the renovation and any new buildings or renovation of buildings that we're going to have to do, that maintenance, build that long-term plan and build a really strong communication strategy that helps our community know what's happening, and so that it won't feel rushed and it won't feel sudden and like we're dropping a bomb on you when we say, hey, we're asking you to pass this. And so really looking forward, I'm hoping that's something that we'll have the opportunity to do, is to build a long-term strategic plan as far as facilities. That's a really difficult thing for a school district because there aren't specific funds that come in for facilities unless you do pass a bond. Otherwise, you have to save your whatever you have left over at the end of the year. You have to drop it into savings and let that accrue to have enough to do any construction or building or renovation. And like I mentioned, with us not having an inflation factor, that gets harder and harder to do every year as inflation goes up, but our basic allotment stays the same. So really hopeful that we'll have the opportunity to work on that so that we can partner with our community to make sure that we have safe buildings and that we have an outlook for many years ahead, and our community will know what to be expecting from us.
But the average taxpayer, he doesn't have a inflation
That's true.
Accelerator or whatever you want to call it in any of his either. So it compounds.
It does.
So we need to solve that problem.
Well, and what's interesting with the way we're funded is I know all of my neighbors paid more in property taxes this year, significantly more, some of them.
Yes.
But we did not receive any more money per student than we did the year before, because with that extra revenue, so Amarillo ISD is funded by, first, we get a cup. The state decides how much money we need to educate the number of kids we have. And we get a cup. And we fill it first with our property tax revenue, and then the state aid comes in. Well, as we grow our property tax revenue, that cup doesn't grow. The state just gives us less money. And so we're still working on the same amount per pupil that we were 3 years ago when they passed HB3 and upped that basic allotment, even though our local taxpayers are paying more.
Well, that's simple.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we just do away with property taxes, and then you get it all from the state?
Where's the state? That public education is $62 billion? Is it every biennium or every year? Where are we going to get that money? That would be the question.
Well, that's a different different question than mine. If you had no money coming in from property taxes, would the state pay all of it?
I'm not sure how they would structure that if we didn't have property taxes. It's the Constitution gives our state legislature the responsibility of funding our public school system. Mine's just more logistical, and in reality,
Well,
but just
that because I don't think there's
would that money come from?
Nothing in the state constitution that requires property taxes.
Well, and is a state property tax not prohibited?
There is no state property tax.
Right, but is it not prohibited?
Property taxes are at the county, state,
right,
county and city and school district political subdivision level. They're regulated by the comptroller,
mm-hmm.
but I'm not sure it's required.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I would
argue, counties, what I'm saying is maybe there's a better way to fund schools.
Maybe, but right now with what we've got, that's how it works, and I just know it's a very expensive endeavor every year, and so I would just wonder where that money would come from if it wasn't coming from our property taxes.
I can think of a lot of ideas.
Well, I'm not in a position powerful enough to make any of that happen. So, and really, we as a school district don't have any control over our tax rate. Where if we want to increase, we have two rates. We have our interest in sinking, which is bond, and then we have our M&O, which is our operations. To raise either of those, we have to have it ratified. We have to have a tax ratification or a bond election. So the voters have to allow that. And then the state has that forced compression every year that they have there. So we really, as a school board, it's very much a formality, us proposing a tax rate every year. The language is even dictated to us when we have those resolutions on what we have to say. So the school board really has, at this point, zero control over our ISD tax rate.
Well, at some point, I think there needs to be a comprehensive look at how all this is, our whole public education system, how it's funded,
Mm-hmm.
how it operates. Is there a more efficient, practical way to do it all?
Mm.
But that'll be in the future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell the voters? Do you have a website? Do you have a way to get a hold of you?
I do have a website. My website is andersonforaisd.com. A lot of information about me on there if you want to get to know more who I am, what I'm about, what I've done over the past 4 years. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Anderson for AISD. And then I have an email, andersonforaisd@gmail.com. And I welcome feedback from the community. I welcome people to get in touch with me and ask questions. I love to go sit down and have coffee and talk to people and get to know them. And when you can talk to people about their hopes and dreams for their kids, we realize we all have more in common than we don't. That's why I love being in education. So I was a teacher, and the most beautiful thing about being a teacher, being in education, is I'd go into that building every day with people all along the political spectrum of beliefs, from one side to the other and all the way in between, and none of that mattered because we were all there focused on doing what was best for kids. And it showed me what we can be as a community and a city when we all get back down to what's really important.
Yeah.
And our kids are pretty important.
Yeah.
And so I love being a part of that. I love being a part of what brings out the best in us. And that's when we talk about our hopes and our dreams for our kids.
Yeah, I think if you'd ask the average person, even above average people, they're all going to say, they all want the same things. They want good schools. That's the first thing they say. Good schools, good infrastructure, streets, water, sewer, good police, good fire, and a well-run and managed city with no fluff. They don't want vanity projects. They want the basics.
You know, I got the opportunity this past year. We started what we've called listening circles, which is where it's smaller groups of people, community members, parents, students, did a lot with students, which was really, really amazing. And it was school board members and administration. Mr. Loomis was at a lot of those. And when we go out in public, a lot of times it's this. We're being asked questions. We're giving the answers. We're doing all the talking. And we really wanted to flip that. And so we asked questions and let those people give us the answers. And we didn't try to explain away their worries or say, well, this is why we do this way. We just listened. And one of those questions was, what makes a great school? Another was, what do you expect your kid to get from school? Talked about what can we do better? Why does your kid love school? And just those kinds of questions. And you're exactly right. Did about 24 of those, over 270 people involved over that time, 30-something hours of sitting and listening and taking notes. And when I went back through, the threads that ran through every one of them were so strong. Everybody wants the same things. They want their kids to be safe, and they want their kids to have good friends that love them for who they are and have great adults that are going to support them and find their love and their interests that lights them up, and learn what they need to learn, have good academics. So it was really encouraging. It was really motivating, because it really does get back to that. We all have more in common than we don't when it comes down to what's important.
Yeah, I think 90% of the community would almost all say exactly the same thing. If we could just get our elected officials to understand that. But it sounds like they're on the right track at the school board. So we appreciate you coming in, and thanks for your time, and good luck out there on the campaign trail. And I'm sure we'll see you at the various and sundry forums that'll be popping up.
Sure. Well, I appreciate you having me today. Thank you so much.
All right, Kimberly.